Hi, friends, and welcome back to the Living on Lemonade podcast. It's been another tiny hot minute since I last recorded. My intention when I came back after the 7-month hiatus and gave you all an update was to establish a kind of regular programming routine and very quickly realized I did not like I feel like I have not really had time to sit down as I am right now and record between working and that last little bit of kind of overtime and a little bit extra here and there that I didn't really anticipate, but was happy to, help out at work. And my birthday was on the 13th, so there was kind of prep work there, getting my house ready to have my best friend and her family over. We had a date on our boat, and then they came back to the house for dinner. So, um, I had kind of neglected some of my housekeeping duties, so it was time to get everything done and freshen up the house. And yeah, I don't know where the time has gone since I last recorded for this podcast. Now I can say I did a recording last week. So I did record for a podcast, but it's for a friend's podcast. So I'm not sure when that's going to come out, but stay tuned. We had a beautiful conversation that went into topics of we were talking about grief and spirituality and kind of the marriage between the two and how they are kind of intertwined or can be in my journey with the two of those things. So I'm very excited for that conversation to be shared and put out into the world. And there were other topics that she and I talked about on the side before we recorded that I think we're gonna have to do a part two, and we're gonna bring her on this podcast. So stay tuned for that. What else have I been up to? The main reason I'm here today is to give you a little bit of an update about this past weekend. So I'm recording right now on Thursday, September 25th. This will come out. I think I'll just schedule it for the Monday. We'll try and get back to Mondays, even if it's maybe every other for now. It's not that I don't have like ideas and stuff, but my sister's flying in on Saturday for a week, so it's kind of one of those times of year, and autumn tends to like September's always, for whatever reason, with my birthday and everything else, it's always just a whirlwind. Like I can't I don't commit to much in September because there's just stuff going on. And then yeah, October sometimes is kind of feels the same and it is almost looking that way. But I will tell you that after my sister and her husband visit, I will I will prioritize the podcast and because I only see her twice a year. So when she comes home for a week, I prioritize like days off. Sometimes I take time off. She's here over her birthday. So it's just one of those things we're kind of like family first, health and family first, as I say. So next week will be just full on hanging out with my sister and her husband because I just don't see them often. And my brother-in-law doesn't come back to Ontario, like he doesn't visit Ontario. I think very often he's been here twice in I don't know how long they've been married, like 14 years, something like that. So yeah, he's only visited twice. Um anyway, I'm rambling a bit, so I'm going to continue on. So this past weekend, I hosted, and I had talked about it in the last episode because it was kind of, I was in the planning stages, and I kind of wanted to take you on that journey in reflection of it and just be honest because I think I've always been intentional about taking you on the journey of whatever's going on. And in a lot of this podcast, since the initial thread of grief, and grief still continues to weave its way through the episodes and such, but just sharing what's going on in my reflections and what I'm learning and kind of discovering and embodying. So I wanted to do that with my this past weekend with two events that I planned and just be real honest about how how it kind of came to be, like the process and how I navigated it, how it turned out, what the results were, and just kind of looking back on it. I don't think, and especially if you have a business, this will be very, I think, helpful maybe for you because we see people put things out all the time, offers and such. And I would say from my experience, very rarely do we actually see, unless we join the offer and we're in the container or whatever that looks like, we don't necessarily see what the outcome is. And I think in the online space, well, we all know a lot of it's a facade, right? We're showing the highlight reels. But it can be from my experience and my kind of opinion and interpretation on it, it can be very, what's the word? Kind of the success and stuff can be augmented in some ways that we think things are maybe going really well or we just assume like a bunch of people signed up and it went really well and I don't think that's always the case, right? There's going to be times where there's no signups, or maybe one or two. And I think that it's helpful to share those honest reflections and the feedback about it because it normalizes just the creative process and that things don't, they rarely turn out the way that we expect them to. But when it doesn't turn out, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with us. And we as humans are really good at making things wrong and turning external feedback or results inward and making the problem inside. And I think it's important that we unlearn that. I've been in that process. So this is why I feel comfortable and safe. And I think for the most part, I kind of always have. I don't really care, but I feel less vulnerable about it now than I have in previous years. I'm just going to take a quick drink because I'm already off to the races. Okay, so if you didn't listen to the last episode, quick recap. I had two events that I planned. One was this past Sunday. It was a virtual, like an online Zoom workshop for the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo. And there's different elements that I wish I won't get into. So the idea around it is, and what we did is we gathered online. I talked about the themes and kind of symbology, like vibe. I think there's another word I want to use, but it's just not coming to me right now. But like the essence and the invitation of reflection to the themes of what like a new moon represents and what a solar eclipse represents and how these kind of themes in the moon cycles and in astrology, whether or not you believe in it, how we can use the themes and turn it inward and create introspection and get curious about those things and relate it to our lives and kind of do an inventory and a check-in on ourselves as part of just our growth journey for those who are on one. So the what I advertised was it was 7 p.m. Eastern time. We were online for a couple hours. I advertised that I would be explaining kind of the themes of the event and like of the new moon solar eclipse. And then we would have a guided meditation. I would lead participants through a meditation. We would do some cord cutting, which, if you're not familiar with that, is kind of like an energetic um, just like a ritual where you visualize cutting attachments between yourself and things that are kind of holding you back. Yeah, it's just a visualizing kind of meditative practice. It can be very effective and just kind of bring you into awareness of things that are holding you back and allow you to kind of review them and get curious about them. So even if it's a little bit too woo for you, there is kind of kind of foundational stuff about it too that you could switch over maybe to more to the science side. And then I also created a workbook with journaling prompts for self-reflection, introspection that like attendees can keep. The session was recorded, so they could, and the replay, like the recording was sent out afterwards so that they could watch it back and take any additional notes or just take in the information again, on their own time. And at the end, we did kind of some just discussion and reflection on what came up during the meditation, because it's always interesting what kind of comes to the surface from our subconscious mind. Yeah, so this is how it worked out for me. And I have learned and unlearned from previous ways I was taught. The unlearning and the relearning has led me to follow my joy and those intuitive hits and put it together in the way that it needs to be put together and not force it and release the outcome and just know that the people who show up, if any, are the people who are meant to be there at that time. And it's not a reflection on my ability to host a workshop or lead people through a meditation and create impact. And yeah, there's so many external sources. So essentially, I see this work, especially now through the last, like I've really kind of just leaned into it, is just following the nudges and knowing that the rest is taken care of and only taking action on the things that I have control over, which is creating clarity in the framework and being able to articulate what the experience is going to be like and then putting it in the world by sharing it in stories and posts and stuff. Like I created a Facebook group. Oh yeah, so that's one other thing that I did since this last recording. I created a new Facebook group. I did it on Nicole's birthday. She's born the day after me. So there's a new community also called Living on Lemonade, has a different title. I'll have to put it in the show notes. It's just a small one so far. We've got 21 people, which is super fun. And just an entirely different vibe than the last one. The last one had a bunch of shoulds and it just felt like old, kind of musty energy. And when I really leaned in, it was like, it's time I'm going to start fresh because I want to come in with this new energy, this new wisdom that I've kind of unraveled over the last few months and create something and have people who resonate with where I'm going next come in instead of seeing if they fit from the old group and take it a different direction, if that makes sense. So, yeah, posting in that group, sharing it, putting in my stories and stuff. I do have to say there were a few days I was kind of neglectful and that maybe part of that's on me. So there's always reflection of like, was I kind of fully showing up in my part or was I avoiding it at all? I did have a few busy days, so I just really wasn't posting on social media. Um, so that's something that I'm also mindful of is like maybe prioritizing a little bit more, maybe I wake up a few minutes earlier, even though I don't really like being on my phone in the morning. But if it's for like an intentional purpose, my stream of consciousness, if it's fresh as I'm kind of waking up after I do I'm back into Oracle card pulling in the morning. I have this beautiful new deck by Rebecca Campbell. It's called the Inner Temple Oracle. It's in my bedroom, so I can't show it to you right now, but after I do my own kind of intuitive practice, I do a little bit of self-healing as I'm just kind of waking up and coming into my body and being aware of like how it's feeling and stuff. Perhaps I can take 5 minutes and create a post. Only go on social media to create, to share what I'm bringing into the world. And I think that would be a good intention. So, anyway, this is just me brainstorming out loud. So there was that little part where I'm like, could I have like shared more? Maybe. I sent out a couple emails. I have an email list. I think there's 16 people on it now, which is super fun. And so, if they saw that, that's cool. The result, I had two beautiful souls join me. One came in like super last minute. It was like 15, 20 minutes before the session, and they just messaged me and said, "Hey, can I still join?" Ah, yeah, absolutely. They're like, "I'll pay after." Cool beans. And so it was perfect. There was the three of us. It was very intimate. We were able to like share, and they got some one-on-one time with me and feedback because I always like when people share with me, I get like a flood of I get a flood of information, I get a flood of ideas, I see things visually in my mind's eye, and I a lot of the time I can relate to it from my own experience and kind of just like walk them through it. So it's essentially like it's coaching, right? And I just spend 6 months learning some of these things and just kind of honing the craft a bit more now. Still new because I don't have a lot of coaching experience, but I just always have so many ideas. So the refining part has been kind of not necessarily like unsolicited advice, but if people are willing to go back and forth with feedback, then yes, I have lots to share always. And they took the notes and they said, "Yeah, that sounds great. I'm gonna try that." And I was like, "Great, let me know let me know how it goes if you want to share it." The other fun thing was because we had a little bit of time at the end, I pulled cards for them. We did a spread, and the cards that were pulled with intentions, the intentions of each card, I had a feeling like pull three, and then there was a question for each card, and the messages were just super, super beautiful and supportive, and very much resonated with the theme of what they were talking about in reflection of the meditation, which was super cool. I love how it all comes together so beautifully. And we used the new Oracle deck by Rebecca Campbell. Um, yeah, so I didn't make it wrong at all. If nobody signed up, I would have just been like, okay. And I decided if no one signs up, I'm going to do my own new moon practice and I'm going to put myself through the work. And the fact that I had two people join me was just incredible. There was something else I wanted to. Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit about my process too, because, and I think I've mentioned this before in reference to the last course that I taught, which was, it was a while back now. It was coming up with spring, it'll be 2 years since I like taught a course. Do have some ideas, but we'll see when I pump them out. The last course, so it was the same as this last course. I I get like ideas and information that like flood in and then I know where to go and I just like do a big brain dump and I start organizing things. In the case of like new moons and winter solstice and autumn equinox and stuff, there's already a date. So it's not like the date comes to me. I already know I'm planning around a specific event in nature, like a cycle. However, what that looks like, could be lots of different things. So oftentimes the inspiration just kind of hits me. Maybe I'm driving, maybe I'm in the shower, or maybe I'm just like ready to get quiet and do a brain dump. I know that it's like coming in. I feel that it's almost like a flow, and then it comes in. And I noticed that I was feeling resistance to to creating the workbook and kind of planning the meditation and where I was going to go with it. And because of my past experience, I knew that I don't necessarily know all of it too far ahead because the last course that I taught, I knew the subject matter and I could kind of plan it out. I knew which topics to do each week. But in terms of the details of where I was going or what I was going to do with each week's meditation, because typically when I teach, I do a meditation as well. I would be taking notes like an hour or the hour before or like the day of, and it would just come through and then I would know. But it's very unnerving for people like me who like to plan ahead and for these types of things be very organized. There's other areas of my life I just kind of wing it. I can be very spontaneous and stuff, but when it comes to teaching, I think it's just my background with teaching piano and cadets and swimming lessons. We have lesson plans, and I like to know what I'm doing so then I'm not I can just focus on that and just know where I'm going. So this was the same way. I had a lot of it come in, but I didn't know what the workbook was going to look like. I didn't know what journaling prompts, like what questions, how, where we were going to be reflecting on. And I think it was like the day of, or maybe the day before, it all just kind of flowed through. I think it was the day before. And it just worked. And I was like, cool. The meditation, I got. When I went into meditation before the class or like right around there, it was kind of last minute too. I just knew where we were going to go in the meditation. I knew what we were going to do with the cord cutting, but it was all very last minute. So if you are following a path of kind of following the breadcrumbs of your intuition and kind of what comes through, just know that if you feel a resistance and like you're hitting a roadblock of like and you're trying to force it, like I gotta, I have to get it done. Do you, or is can you make time closer to? Because from what I'm just learning, it's not ready or whatever. You're just like you can't force it, or else it's not going to be as magical as when it's ready to just like drop into your brain and you're ready to write it out. So that's what I have to say on that. It all worked out really fine. I couldn't have like forced myself to come up with what ended up happening, trying to force it when it was on my timeline. When I left it open and just said, all right, like I need to know before we go, like before we hit play and record, but it all worked out. So just if you like, if you're leaning into the intuition path, just trust it. If it's a block, if it feels like resistance, give it some space and surrender into the information will come in when it's ready and it'll be ready for you. Now, the next day was the autumn equinox, and the event that I planned was in person. I was planning a autumn equinox meal with, what was it? Cinnamon and sugar, brie, apple and brie grilled cheese, homemade butternut squash. I was like, I can see the squash. Which one's it? What's it called? Butternut squash. That was like the core, the main meal. And then homemade hot apple cider and I mean all of it was homemade. And then dessert was apple crisp with pomegranate, and there was symbolism around that with Persephone because she is the like goddess of the underworld, and there's a story in Greek mythology around the equinox with Persephone, and one of in her symbol is one of her symbols is the pomegranate, so I wanted to incorporate pomegranate into something. And then apples, of course, are like a fall fruit, and apple crisp is super warm, and it's just like a perfect fall um, dish. So I made all this, and leading up, again, I was kind of dropping the ball with posting and stuff, but I'm not really being too hard on myself about it because I don't know, like I did a decent amount, especially my stories, if people see them. I don't know, but I digress. Leading up to the event, the the weather was looking sketchy. So my plan was I had a location which I wasn't going to tell only to the people participating, right? And so my idea was to have it kind of outdoors. at a place where we could have a campfire. And I was going to have a campfire. We were also going to go through a meditation, maybe a little bit of cord cutting, and reflective, like journal prompts. And actually, a little bit of reflection, but honestly, I usually do it during the meditation, and then we kind of reflect after. And then write down our intentions because the equinox was kind of new energy, but winding down, and the themes of like Libra and the equinox is equal light, equal dark. So a little bit of reflection there, inward reflection. And Libra's symbol is scales, two scales. So the theme of Libra season is balance, coming into balance after the busy summer and starting to wind down and prepare for winter and the darkness and that deeper introspection. So all of the themes around equinox and stuff like that, which is super cool, turning it inward and applying it to our own lives. And then we were gonna write down intentions that we have and stuff and then burn it because that's kind of like that's a visual and physical way of kind of like letting it go. We have these intentions and then we're going to kind of give it to the universe or however you want to look at that. Just is let go of the how and the exact when and all of that. So just surrender. It's a surrender practice. Um, I didn't have any signups. So it was calling for rain. So it was kind of like, I don't really know how this is gonna work out. And I was having a little bit of like I could visualize it for the most part, but there was a piece of it that I was just like, I don't know. I don't know how this is gonna work out. Um, so I truly wasn't surprised because I kind of it got to the point where I was like, if you're interested in joining me, like reach out and we'll kind of play it by ear. Because if we have to fully cancel, I will reimburse you, or we'll like kind of work it out and all that. We also were gonna watch the sunset because it was like equal light, equal day, watch the sun go down as at the end of that day. It would have been a whole vibe, but it didn't work out that way. And as it turns out, I had a great day. I ran some errands. I actually I'll get back to that actually. So I ran my errands and I came home. My husband was working that day, and I cooked us this beautiful, cool meal. Like, um, cooking isn't cooking is an area where I don't feel super confident. I love baking now. Like I can bake and stuff like that. Maybe not like super complicated things, but I can make some pretty good stuff. Cooking has been like a journey, but it's something I've been embracing. And I've been finding ways to kind of make it fun and interesting. So in March, I hosted a St. Patrick's Day meal and hang out with two of our best friends. And I planned an entire meal and I like executed it. I had my husband help me with some of it because I actually had to like drive to Cambridge and back that day for a funeral. So I kind of did stuff the night before and then I was prepping things in the morning, but then I had to drive for the funeral and back before my friends got here and it was a whole thing. So I had to delegate a little bit, but like I executed it and it actually it turned out well. I picked some great recipes that turned out really well. Eric did a great job filling in and doing the things that needed to be done far enough in advance that I couldn't do when I got home. And that kind of it felt like a safe way to expand my horizons and just try something new. So I did that again. I was nervous about it, but it turned out really well. And to be honest, it was perfect. It was just the two of us. I took my dessert and the hot cider out onto the back deck, watched the sunset as I intended. Um, I didn't end up there was no campfire, so no release ceremony, but I like no intention setting ceremony, but I was reflective on it. And the point that I was kind of came up while I was talking and I want to go back to the night before, excuse me. when we did our meditation. Just give me 1 second. I'm like losing my voice. I was leaning into the energy of it as well, even though I was hosting the new moon solar eclipse event. I was reflecting on the questions and stuff, and I did my own card pull after the three of us ended the session and stuff, and leaned in, and I decided, and I'll share it with you. I decided, and one of the themes of Virgo, which was the new moon, and it was at kind of like an ending, right? Because then we're moving into Libra season. So that symbolizes like a chapter ending. So what are you letting go of to make room for this new season of leaning into balance and stuff? One of the themes of Virgo is mind-body connection. And so looking at how like my relationship with my mind body connection and what I'm ready to let go of and how am I going to move into more balance. So what I decided in my reflection is I drink too many ice caps. I've been very reliant on them. No, I did have one this morning, but I had gone 5 days, and that's a lot for me. I don't really drink coffee. Ice caps are kind of they're my thing, but I realized they'd kind of become a crutch. It was just something I get every day, and it's like I need it to survive. I'm like, do I really? And also, do I need that much sugar as like the first thing I'm putting in my body in the morning, which is especially when I'm on days like 6 in the morning or 6:30 in the morning. Probably not, maybe not. Maybe sometimes I enjoyed it this morning, but that was it, it just felt like, ooh, yeah, I kind of want one this morning. But I didn't all my the rest, I think the last one was on Saturday. So I decided that I'm gonna kind of clean up and be more intentional about what I'm putting in my body. And the second part of that, I've been feeling the nudge forever, and I talk about this movement. And I've had a lot of resistance around like, what's that gonna look like? I do go for walks at work. I take about a half-hour walk on my lunch. And so I try to get 5,000 steps a day. Doesn't always happen, depends on what's going on. But I do kind of make a point of it. And but I knew I needed to do something more. And I don't want to jog or run right now. I'm not feeling it. I don't feel like doing hit stuff. Like Jillian Michaels is all I have her DVDs and stuff and I'll put one on in once in a while. But when I think about it, I've just kind of been like, oh, because I've been in a period of like introspection and kind of like a slowdown and just looking within and so that kind of high energy stuff, I just feel like I need to kind of calibrate and get ready for it. Now, what I have been feeling a nudge to that I've been resisting and avoiding is getting back in the pool and swimming. So I finally last week I looked up pools in the area, the YMCA's, what memberships cost, and I found like a sports complex. It's about 20 minutes from work, 30 minutes from home. Further than the Y, but their lane swim schedule is way better. And you can buy a 10 swim pass instead of having to pay a monthly fee because the YMCA is like $90 a month. And I'm like, that's that's a lot, it feels like, especially because I've had this story that I also became aware of, and I'm like, God damn, it's been like I've been doing this job for like 6.5 years, and I keep saying, "Oh, I just haven't adjusted to shift work." And now that I say it out loud, it kind of sounds funny. Like it is what it is. We all will always make excuses for not like doing the thing when we don't want to do the thing or we're not really ready because we are ready when it's more uncomfortable to not do the new thing. Or sorry, more uncomfortable is to stay still than to move forward and do the thing, right? So I've had this story for so long of like I haven't found my footing with movement and getting active and in shape. with shift work now. I do play beach volleyball once a week in the summer. And I actually signed up for indoor volleyball over the winter, which is also going to help me. And I enjoy it. So I'm leaning into these things of like, what is actually fun? Because for me, it's really hard to get to get motivated when it's going to be a grueling workout or whatever. It's never been my vibe. Now I don't mind some hard stuff when I can kind of get into it, but I'm just starting after like a long period of doing nothing. So, I want something that can kind of feel a little bit, a little bit of resistance, but not so much that it's going to overwhelm my system and I'm going to quit before I start, if that makes sense. So I got back in the pool on Monday, which was the autumn equinox, and that was the other, like, I used the theme and symbolism of the day of like this new chapter opening. And I said, I committed. I said, I have to go and swim today. I'm not working. I don't have any sign-ups, so there's not this like pressure to be in the preparing this meal for hours or figuring out how to do it on at the location that I had chosen. So there's no reason for me to not go swimming. So I went to this sports complex, checked it out, bought my 10 swim pass. I went to the lane swim. There was two other women there, so the three of us had the whole pool. We just had basically a third of the pool to ourselves. And I got there a little later than I anticipated. I actually got up early for it too. I was at a bed at like 7:30 or 7 or something. And but I got there a little bit later than I anticipated in that I didn't have enough time to swim my full 40 lengths that I would normally do when I'm in the routine of swimming. That's at 1 kilometer if it's a 100-meter pool, right? So I think I did 30. And I was like, that's great. For my first day back and with the time that I have, I did 30 lengths. And my favorite part of swimming is maybe not so much. I do like swimming lengths actually, but it's floating on my back to kind of like stretch it out a little bit after and just having my ears under the water and just straight up and I floated my back for like 5 minutes and it is like my favorite self-care thing ever is floating on my back in water. There's something so relaxing and meditative about it. And it's just like the entire world falls away. You feel weightless because you're literally floating on water or in water, but like there's just it's a whole thing for me. Um, so that felt so refreshing and I was like, "Oh, I'm moving forward. Like I'm moving again." And it felt so good to be back in the pool. And then when I went last night, I noticed that for one, the first day I didn't have goggles and I just kind of slipped in the pool. Actually, I found my goggles. I knew that they were in my car, but they'd been riding around my car for years and like hot car in the summer and the plastic of like what would seal against your eye was just warped and stuff. And it's like, oh, I gotta throw these out. But to be fair, I've probably had them for 15 years, so they lived a good life. So after I swam on Monday, I immediately went and bought new goggles because I'm like, this is a new era and I'm committing to it. I'm excited about it, so I know that I'm going to make it work. Last night, which was Wednesday, I went and swam after work. Lane swim was at 8 p.m. I got there around 20 after 7, so I had time. So I just sat in my car and read a book for a little while, went, checked in, and then went into the change room, got changed and ready, had a little shower to rinse off, and then put my goggles on and I dove in the water. I was so excited to like dive in. I hadn't dove in water in like ages, but and then I swam my 40 lengths and it took me 30 minutes. And I think when I'm in decent shape and swimming regularly, I think it takes 20. So longer, but I didn't go in with expectations to pick up where I left off because my body's not the same and I've been through things and so I was meeting myself where I'm at and just saying 40 and 30s, that's great. I felt great. And I was like out of breath at the end. And one thing I really noticed last night compared to the other day was I think it was just the whole thing because I was changing into my bathing suit and like I had more time. than the other day when I was just kind of rushing there to try and get there in time and such. I kind of almost like leaned into the routine a little bit more, and it was giving me a feeling of like nostalgia, and I felt a connection to the former versions of myself who would swim and regularly and loved it. And I had lost that connection to those like chapters that I would feel that way. And it felt very like when I'm thinking about it now, it felt incredible. It just felt so good. I don't know. So um reflecting on that and to bring it forward to you is what is one thing, especially if you've been nudged, if you're getting the intuitive nudges of something that you've done in the past that you really enjoyed, that maybe wasn't necessarily the easiest, because when you're trying to swim lengths fast, yeah, it's a workout. I realize I'm actually feeling pretty good, but I definitely feel it in my arms. My arms are burning and they're a little achy. I'm using muscle groups that I forgot I had. But what is something that you feel curiosity around that you maybe used to do and you've lost the connection to? And it might be fun to explore it to see if you still love it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but if you have that curiosity about it and it's on your mind and you're kind of getting a little bit of a nudge, I invite you to reconnect with it and see where it leads you, because I can tell you this week's been very soul nourishing for me. I consider going swimming tonight. However, I'm working 4 straight days. I did some switcheroos, and I really wanted to record tonight. So I sacrificed diving in the pool and swimming lengths and doing the whole thing so that I could come home, get turned around because, like I said, my sister flies in Saturday. I needed to get the house just kind of tidied up a little bit from the last week or so, or just, dishes pile up and whatnot, fold some laundry and get the bedroom ready for them. So I I decided that I would feel more at ease to come home and do these things, to record the podcast, because I've been wanting to share my reflections about the two events and everything else that's been going on, my commitment to the fitness and stuff, the movement. And so I went for a walk on my break. So I was like, I still got some movement in today, and I feel great because I get to have the podcast recorded, which I'm going to wind it down because I've been talking for ages. And yeah, so my intention, I don't think I don't see myself having a podcast episode every week for the first bit, just because next week's kind of full on with my sister being home and it's just a whole thing. So I doubt that I'm going to be recording, but as soon as I can, I really would like to get into the weekly episodes again, and I have lots of ideas for collaborations and recordings. So I'm gonna get that ball rolling. If you've noticed my presence online and just the kind of new, fresh energy that I'm bringing to the podcast and into my life that I've been sharing with you, I'm in a spring, like a figurative spring where you're planting the seeds, and it's like the time of year when you're doing the things. And that's how I feel. I have more energy, and that's how I know that it's time to do the things, because I have the energy to support the ideas and the things that are kind of coming through and nudging me. So it's been great. Yeah, I'm gonna finish this episode now. I hope everyone's having a lovely week. And yeah, come hang out in the new group. I'm just kind of sharing things sparingly as I decide where we're going, because like I have been explaining, we get kind of one little glimpse, and then we take that step and then we see the next steps. I don't have the full picture of it. I just have a few pieces that I'm just kind of following as it feels good, and just making sure that I'm all the priorities are kind of taken care of. I also sewed this really cute seahorse the other day for a friend, so I've been back sewing. I pinned a quilt on Monday as well that has been sitting since like February. So it's ready to quilt. So it's like this like completion, new beginnings energy has been very, very loud and very incredible the last few days. So it's just things are kind of moving forward. I'm excited to get sewing for fall markets. My mom and I are doing 4 craft markets, and I have a bunch of fabric I want to use up, make new products. So yeah, I just need a few days at home, but we'll get there. All right, I'm going to stop talking. If you've made it to the end, well done. And I hope everyone's doing well. If you need a hug, I'm sending you one. And we'll talk soon in the next episode. Bye, everyone.